X abandons her in a field of cacti. Today she is the Tequila Queen, and he returns regretful. Jessica Harper never imagined her life would change completely on that scorching April day in the Arizona desert. The argument with Brandon had started like so many others, but this time he went too far. It was when he slammed on the brakes in the middle of a dirt road, surrounded by cacti and prickly pears stretching as far as the eye could see. "Get out of the car, Jessica!" shouted Brandon, pointing to the door. "What do you mean, Brandon? We're in the middle of nowhere," she replied, unable to believe what she was hearing. "You'll never amount to anything in life anyway. Stay here and think about what you did wrong." Jessica got out of the car trembling, still not fully understanding what was happening. Brandon threw her purse out the window and sped off, kicking up a cloud of red dust that completely enveloped her. "Brandon, come back here," she screamed, running after the car that was already rapidly disappearing. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica looked around and realized the gravity of the situation. There were no houses, no people, just the vastness of the desert under a merciless sun that was already beginning to burn her skin. She sat on the hot ground and began to cry. The tears dried before they could even run down her face due to the intense heat. Her throat was already dry, and she realized she had no water. That's when she heard the sound of footsteps. 2 dogs approached slowly, as if they understood her pain. A large German shepherd and a light-haired mutt, both thin but with gentle eyes. "Were you abandoned too?" asked Jessica, extending her hand. The dogs approached and lay down beside her, as if offering companionship in that terrible moment. Jessica petted them both and felt that at least she wasn't completely alone. The sun was getting stronger, and she knew she needed to find shelter quickly. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and began walking in the opposite direction Brandon had gone, with the 2 dogs following by her side. After 2 hours of walking under the scorching sun, Jessica spotted a small building in the distance. It was a simple house surrounded by crops she couldn't fully identify. It looked like agave, a plant she knew only by name. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Jessica approached the house cautiously. A middle-aged woman appeared at the door, drying her hands on a cloth. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm sorry to bother you, but—" Jessica began, but her voice failed due to thirst. "My God, girl, you're sunburned. Come in here quickly." The woman, who introduced herself as Mrs. Patricia, led Jessica into the cool house. She offered her ice water and a place to sit in the shade. "What is a girl like you doing lost out here?" Jessica told her story between sips of water. Mrs. Patricia shook her head, indignant. "That Brandon is no good. A man who abandons a woman in the middle of the desert isn't a man. He's a coward. I need to get back to Phoenix, but I don't have money for a ticket." "Honey, the bus only comes by here on Monday and Thursday. Today is Tuesday. You'll have to stay at least until Thursday." Mrs. Patricia called her husband, Mr. Thomas, a 65-year-old man with calloused hands and a suspicious look. He listened to the story in silence. "I don't know, Patricia. We don't know this girl. How do we know if she's telling the truth?" "Thomas, look at the state she's in. Sunburned, thirsty dogs following her. What kind of lie would that be?" Mr. Thomas relented, but made it clear that Jessica would have to work if she wanted to stay. He didn't accept anyone sitting idle on his property. "I'll work. I'll do anything." "Tomorrow morning you'll go to the agave field. It's hard work under the sun. Can you handle it?" "I can handle it." Jessica spent her first night in a small but clean room. The dogs slept outside, like guardians. She couldn't close her eyes thinking of Brandon, the humiliation, the uncertainty of the future. The next morning, she woke before sunrise. Mrs. Patricia was already in the kitchen preparing coffee and pancakes. "Eat well, girl. The work in the field is tough." Mr. Thomas appeared with an old hat and thick gloves. "You can use these. The sun here doesn't forgive." In the field, Jessica met David and Michael, Mr. Thomas's sons. Both in their 30s, tanned, strong, accustomed to hard work. "Dad, you brought a little city girl to work here?" David laughed. "She says she wants to work. Let's see if she can handle it." The work consisted of cutting the leaves of the agave, a tough and thorny plant. Jessica cut her hands several times on the first day, even with gloves. Her back ached, sweat poured non-stop, but she didn't complain. "The girl is stubborn," Michael commented to David. "Stubborn, but she's working," replied his brother. At the end of the first day, Jessica could barely move. Her hands were raw, her arms scratched by the thorns, but she had cut as much agave as the men expected. "I didn't think you'd make it," admitted David. "Neither did I." Jessica smiled with difficulty. Mrs. Patricia tended to Jessica's wounds with homemade herbs. The dogs remained always nearby, as if understanding she needed protection. "These animals have taken a liking to you," observed Mrs. Patricia. "They saved me yesterday. If it weren't for them, I would have died of thirst on the road." By the second week, Jessica was more adapted to the work. Her hands had developed calluses, her muscles had strengthened, her skin had tanned. More importantly, she began to understand the agave cultivation process. "Mr. Thomas, can I ask a question?" "Speak, girl. Why do you always cut the agave the same way? Some plants seem better than others." "That's how we've always done it. My father did it this way, my grandfather too." Jessica observed more closely and noticed that some plants had thicker, juicier leaves. Others seemed dried out or sickly. "What if we separated the better plants from the worse ones? Maybe the buyer would pay more for the better quality." David and Michael laughed. "Buyer doesn't care about that, miss. Agave is agave. But maybe if we offered superior quality—" "Jessica, you don't understand agave," Mr. Thomas cut in. "You've only worked here 2 weeks." Jessica didn't insist but kept observing. She noticed patterns the others didn't see. Some plants had more concentrated sugar, others were more fibrous. On Saturday, Mrs. Linda arrived, a buyer from a small local distillery, a woman in her mid-50s with the decisive air of someone who knew the business. "Thomas, I brought the truck for the usual load." "It's ready, Linda." "Same quality as always." Jessica watched the negotiation from afar. Mrs. Linda quickly examined some plants and settled on the price without much enthusiasm. After she left, Jessica approached Mr. Thomas. "Mr. Thomas, can I show you something?" She led him to an area of the field where she had mentally separated the better plants. "Look at these plants here. See how the leaves are thicker and the color is different?" Mr. Thomas examined more closely and realized Jessica was right. There really is a difference. What if we separated these better plants and offered them as a special grade? "I don't know, girl. Linda always buys everything together." "But what if another buyer showed up, someone who would pay more for quality?" Mr. Thomas pondered. The agave business was tough. The low prices, competition with larger producers, lack of money to invest. "Do you really think it makes a difference?" "I'm certain, Mr. Thomas." On Sunday, Jessica convinced Mr. Thomas to let her prepare a special sample. She carefully selected the best plants, separated the leaves by size and quality. "If it goes wrong, you take responsibility," he said. "I will." On Monday, when Mrs. Linda arrived, she found the load organized differently. "Thomas, what changes this?" Jessica had an idea. She separated the plants by quality. Mrs. Linda examined the samples more carefully than usual. Her eyebrows raised when she saw the difference in quality. "This one here is truly superior. Where did you learn to do this selection?" "It was Jessica's idea." Mr. Thomas pointed to her. "Young lady, do you understand agave?" "I'm learning, ma'am." Mrs. Linda examined all the categories Jessica had created. The expression on her face changed as she saw the quality. "Thomas, for this special category, I'll pay 50% more, and this intermediate one, 20% more." The total sale price was 40% higher than normal. Mr. Thomas couldn't believe what he was hearing. After Mrs. Linda left with the load, the whole family looked at Jessica with new eyes. "How did you know it would work?" asked David. "I didn't know, but I noticed Linda always looked at the plants the same way, without paying attention to the details. I thought if we showed the difference—" "Jessica, you saved our harvest," said Mrs. Patricia. From that day on, Jessica became responsible for the selection and classification of the agave. Mr. Thomas taught her about the different types of plants, harvest times, special care. Jessica absorbed everything like a sponge. She asked questions, suggested improvements, wrote everything down in a notebook Mrs. Patricia gave her. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Linda brought news. "Thomas, my boss was impressed with the quality of the last shipment. He wants to meet who made the selection." It was Jessica. He wants to speak with her. The following Thursday, a black car arrived at the property. A middle-aged man, well-dressed with the appearance of a successful businessman, got out. "I'm Charles Bennett, owner of St. Francis Distillery. I want to meet the person responsible for the agave selection." Jessica introduced herself, still dirty from work in the field. "You are very young. Where did you learn about agave?" "Right here, Mr. Charles. Observing, learning from Mr. Thomas. And the selection techniques. I developed them myself, trying to understand why some plants were better than others." Charles Bennett was impressed. He asked several technical questions, which Jessica answered confidently. "Jessica, I have a proposal. I want you to be my exclusive supplier of special agave. I'll pay double the normal price, Mr. Thomas almost fainted upon hearing the proposal. "But there is one condition," continued Charles. "I need quantity. You would have to expand production." "How so?" asked Jessica. "I would need to involve other producers in the region. You would train them in your selection technique." The proposal was tempting, but Jessica noticed a problem. "Mr. Charles, if I train other producers, they could sell to other buyers. That's why I want exclusivity. A 3-year contract, fixed price." Mr. Thomas was eager to accept, but Jessica asked for time to think. "Can I give an answer next week?" After Charles left, Jessica talked with the family. "Do you think we should accept?" "It's a lot of money, Jessica," said Michael. "But it's also a lot of risk," pondered David. "What if he doesn't honor the contract? What if a better buyer appears?" added Jessica. Mr. Thomas was torn. The offer meant financial security, but also total dependence on a single buyer. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following week, before giving Carlos an answer, Jessica had an idea. She decided to visit other producers in the region to better understand the market. Mrs. Patricia accompanied her on the visits. They discovered that most small producers were facing financial difficulties. They sold their agave for very low prices to middlemen. "Jessica, if you teach them your technique, everyone can earn more," said Mrs. Patricia. "But then I lose exclusivity. Perhaps exclusivity isn't the best path." Jessica reflected on this. She remembered how she felt when Brandon abandoned her, the feeling of having no control over her own life. She decided to refuse Charles Bennett's offer. "Mr. Charles, I appreciate the proposal, but I'm going to take a different path." "Are you sure, Jessica? That's a lot of money you're turning down." "I'm sure." Charles was surprised but respected her decision. Jessica then began organizing an informal cooperative of producers. She taught her selection technique to 5 families in the region. The result was immediate. Mrs. Linda began paying better prices to all producers who followed Jessica's method. But success brought problems. Other buyers appeared interested in the selected agave. Some producers began competing among themselves for the best prices. "Jessica, it's turning into a mess," said Mr. Thomas. "Everyone's selling to the highest bidder." "We need to organize better." Jessica proposed creating an official cooperative with clear rules and fair profit sharing. Anyone who wants to participate must follow the quality standards. Those who don't are out. The idea was well received by most, but some producers resisted. "Why do we have to follow the rules of a girl who just got here 2 months ago?" complained Joe Williams, a rival producer. "Because this girl is achieving what you never could," replied Mr. Thomas. Tension in the region grew. Joe Williams began spreading rumors that Jessica was trying to appropriate traditional techniques. "She's an outsider. She doesn't understand our culture," he said to anyone who would listen. Jessica faced the first truly difficult moment since she had been abandoned. She felt questioned, misunderstood. "Maybe I should leave," she confessed to Mrs. Patricia. "Nonsense, girl. You brought prosperity to this region. You're not going to let a jealous person like Joe Williams ruin everything." That night, Jessica had a long talk with the dogs that had found her in the desert. They listened patiently, as they always did. "Do you think I should continue?" The German shepherd laid its head in her lap, as if to say yes. The next day, Jessica made a decision. She would prove her techniques worked by creating a model plantation. She borrowed a plot of land from Mr. Thomas and began planting agave using the methods she had developed. Careful selection of seedlings, optimized spacing, controlled irrigation. "I will prove that my method produces superior agave," she announced publicly. Joe Williams laughed. "Let's see if the little rich girl can handle getting her hands really dirty." Jessica worked from sunup to sundown for 3 months. Her hands bled again, her back ached, but she persisted. The dogs always accompanied her, offering silent companionship. David and Michael helped her in their spare time, impressed by her dedication. "Jessica, you don't have to prove anything to anyone," said David. "I need to prove it to myself." When the time came for the first harvest from Jessica's plantation, the entire region was curious. Mrs. Linda came personally to examine the result. The quality of the agave exceeded all expectations. The plants were larger, more succulent, with a higher concentration of sugars. "Jessica, this is spectacular," said Mrs. Linda. "I've never seen agave of this quality in the region." "How much is it worth?" asked Jessica. "It's 3 times superior to common agave. I can pay 3 times more." The news spread quickly. Joe Williams fell silent, having nothing to say. The producers who had hesitated to join the cooperative now asked to get in. "Jessica, teach us," asked John Anderson, another producer from the region. "On one condition," said Jessica. "Everyone has to follow the same standards. I don't accept half measures." The cooperative was formalized with 12 producers. Jessica was elected president unanimously. The cooperative's success attracted attention from buyers in other regions. A tequila distillery from Mexico sent representatives to see the Arizona agave. "Miss Jessica, our boss would like to establish a partnership," said George Patterson, the Mexican representative. "What kind of partnership?" "We want to import your agave for premium tequila production in Mexico." The proposal was financially attractive, but Jessica hesitated. "I need to consult the cooperative." In the meeting, the producers were divided. "It's a lot of money, Jessica," said Mr. Thomas. "But wouldn't it be better to produce our own tequila right here?" suggested Jessica. "Here, how so?" asked Michael. "Why export raw material if we can manufacture the final product?" The idea was bold. None of them had experience in distillation. "Jessica, this is very risky," said David. "Everything we've done so far has been risky." Jessica decided to study the tequila production process. She asked the Mexicans for help to understand distillation. "Miss Jessica, it's a complex process. It requires knowledge, expensive equipment," explained George. "I'm willing to learn." George was impressed by Jessica's determination. He offered to teach the first steps of distillation. "My boss authorizes it. He admires determined people like you." Jessica spent a month learning about fermentation, distillation, aging. She absorbed every detail, took meticulous notes. When she returned to the cooperative, she brought a complete plan for artisanal tequila production. "We need to invest in equipment, but the profits will be 5 times greater." The producers were excited but worried about the initial investment. "Where will we get the money to buy distillery equipment?" asked John Anderson. "We'll start small. Used equipment, limited production, until we prove it works." Jessica used her personal savings to buy the first used still. It was small, but enough to start. The first distillation was an event for the whole community. Everyone wanted to see if it would really work. The process took 3 days. Jessica supervised each step with scientific care. When the first liter of artisanal Arizona tequila came out, the entire cooperative celebrated. "Jessica, you've performed a miracle," said Mrs. Patricia proudly. The flavor of the tequila even surprised George Patterson. "Miss Jessica, this has international quality." "How much is it worth?" asked Jessica. "In the Mexican market, tequila of this quality is worth $50 a bottle." The producers were euphoric. It was 10 times more profit than selling raw agave. Jessica decided to register the brand Desert Bloom for the cooperative's artisanal tequila. The first production run of 100 bottles sold out in a week on the local market. Orders began to arrive from Phoenix, San Diego, New York. Distributors fought for exclusivity. "Jessica, we need to expand production," said Mr. Thomas. "Slowly. Quality first, quantity later." Jessica maintained strict control over every step. She refused to cut costs that could compromise quality. 6 months after the launch, the Desert Bloom tequila was considered one of the best in the United States. A specialized magazine published a story about the cooperative, calling Jessica the Desert Miracle. The report generated national repercussions. Orders came in from all over the country. It was then that Jessica received an unexpected call. "Hello, Jessica. It's Brandon." Jessica nearly dropped the phone upon hearing her ex-boyfriend's voice. "Brandon, how did you get my number? I saw the article in the magazine. Congratulations on your success. What do you want?" "I want to talk. Can I come there?" "What for?" "Jessica, I made a terrible mistake. I want to apologize." Jessica hesitated. Part of her wanted to hang up immediately. Another part was curious to hear what Brandon had to say. "You can come, but I'm not promising anything." "I'll be there on Saturday." Jessica told her family about Brandon's call. "That man has some nerve," said Michael, indignant. "Jessica, be careful. A man who abandons a woman in the desert is capable of anything," warned Mrs. Patricia. "Don't worry, I know how to defend myself now." On Saturday, Brandon arrived driving a used car, very different from the luxury sedan he used to have. Jessica received him in the cooperatives area, surrounded by the supportive producers. Brandon was thinner, with a tired appearance. The suit was the same, but it was wrinkled and worn. "Jessica, you look beautiful. The desert has been good for you." "Say what you came to say, Brandon." "First, I want to apologize. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life." "And why did you do it?" Brandon took a deep breath. "I was broke, Jessica. The company had gone under. I had lost everything. I was desperate, angry at the world." "And you took it out on me?" "Yes. When you suggested we could start over together, I exploded. I didn't want you to see my failure." Jessica listened in silence. The dogs stayed by her side, as they always did when they sensed tension. "Brandon, you abandoned me in the middle of the desert. I could have died." "I know. That's why I'm here, to make amends." "How so?" "I want to help your company. I have business experience." David and Michael exchanged suspicious glances. "Brandon, I don't need your help," said Jessica firmly. "Jessica, please, give me a chance to make things right." "You had your chance. You wasted it when you left me among the cacti." Brandon insisted for 2 hours, but Jessica was unyielding. He left empty-handed. "You did the right thing, Jessica," said Mr. Thomas. "A man who does that once will do it again." In the following months, Jessica focused on expanding the cooperative. New producers joined, and production tripled. The Desert Bloom brand won national and international awards. European distributors expressed interest. Jessica hired a consultant to help with exports. It was important to do everything by the rules. The first export was to France. 50 bottles for an importer specializing in craft spirits. The success in France opened doors to other European countries. Spain, Italy, and Portugal placed orders. "Jessica, we're becoming an international company," said Mrs. Patricia proudly. The revenue allowed them to invest in new equipment and more advanced techniques. The quality of the tequila improved even further. George Patterson visited the cooperative again, now as an official partner. "Miss Jessica, my boss wants to propose a partnership." "What kind of partnership?" "He provides capital to expand production. You will continue to control quality." The proposal was tempting, but Jessica had learned to be cautious. "I need to think." At the cooperative meeting, the producers were divided. "It's a chance to grow very fast," said John Anderson. "But also a chance to lose control of our company," pondered Jessica. "Jessica, you decide," said Mr. Thomas. "We trust you." Jessica decided to accept, but with strict conditions. Quality control would remain with the cooperative. The Mexican capital investment allowed them to build a modern distillery. Production increased tenfold while maintaining quality. Desert Bloom became an internationally recognized brand. Jessica became a reference in rural entrepreneurship. Universities began inviting her to give lectures. Young rural producers from across the United States came to learn her techniques. "Jessica, you've become an inspiration to many people," said Mrs. Patricia. During one of these lectures, Jessica met Dr. Edward Sullivan, an agronomist specialized in semi-arid plants. Edward was impressed with the methods Jessica had developed intuitively. "Jessica, you've rediscovered ancient cultivation techniques. It's fascinating." "How so?" "Indigenous peoples used similar methods centuries ago. You have a natural talent." The conversation with Edward sparked Jessica's curiosity about the history of agave cultivation in the Northeast. She discovered that her region had been a center for fermented beverage production long before colonization. "We are reviving a lost tradition," she said to Edward. "Exactly, and doing it in a sustainable and inclusive way." Edward offered to help Jessica document the cooperative's methods. The goal was to preserve the knowledge for future generations. Working together on the project, Jessica and Edward developed a close relationship. "Jessica, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead." "Did you never want to get married? Have a family?" Jessica reflected. Since Brandon, she had focused exclusively on work. "I've thought about it, but I haven't found the right person yet." Edward smiled. "Perhaps you weren't looking in the right place." The romance between Jessica and Edward developed gradually. He respected her independence and ambition. "Edward, I don't want you to think you have to compete with my work. Jessica, your work is part of who you are. I admire that." 6 months later, Edward proposed to Jessica during a special harvest. "Jessica Harper, will you marry me?" "Edward, I have one condition." "What is it?" "The wedding has to be here at the cooperative with all the producers present. I wouldn't have it any other way." The wedding was held on the same land where Jessica had planted her first experimental crop. The entire community participated. Mrs. Linda provided the drinks. George Patterson came from Mexico, especially for the ceremony. The dogs that had found Jessica in the desert were the special best men. "These two saved my life," Jessica told the guests. During the celebration, Jessica noticed a man watching from a distance. It was Brandon. She approached him. "What are you doing here, Brandon?" "I came to congratulate you, Jessica. You deserve all the happiness in the world." "How did you hear about the wedding?" "It was in the local paper. The Tequila Queen gets married." Brandon was different, more humble, with the appearance of someone who had learned hard lessons. "Brandon, what are you doing for work now?" "I'm a sales representative. I earn little, but it's honest work." "And why did you come here?" "To truly ask for forgiveness, and to say you were right." "Right about what?" "About not trusting me back then. I really was no good." Jessica was surprised by Brandon's sincerity. "And now?" "Now I've learned. Sometimes failure teaches more than success." "Brandon, I forgive you, but I don't forget." "I understand. I just wanted you to know I'm grateful." "Grateful? If I hadn't made that mistake, you might never have discovered your potential." Jessica reflected on that. Brandon was right. The abandonment had been the start of her transformation. "Perhaps you have a point." "Jessica, may I ask a favor?" "That depends on the favor. If you ever need a sales representative in the region, remember me?" Jessica smiled. "Brandon, you're not asking me for a job, are you?" "I am. I've learned to be humble." "I'll think about it." 3 months after the wedding, the cooperative faced a new challenge. A multinational company tried to copy the Desert Bloom brand. "Jessica, they're using an almost identical name and claiming it's the authentic desert tequila," informed Mr. Thomas. Jessica hired a lawyer specialized in intellectual property. The legal battle would be long and expensive. "We won't give up," said Jessica. "This brand represents our history, our work." During the process, Jessica needed to prove the originality of her methods and the authenticity of the brand. It was then that the documentation done with Edward became fundamental. It proved that the cooperative had developed the techniques independently. The lawsuit lasted a year. The multinational company tried various appeals, but the court upheld the cooperative's rights. "Jessica, You won, the lawyer informed her. The legal victory strengthened the brand even further. International orders increased significantly. Jessica decided it was time to expand to other states. The cooperative model would be replicated in different regions. We want to take our experience to producers across the entire Northeast, she announced in an interview. The expansion began in Texas, where there were producers interested in agave. Jessica personally trained the first groups. The model proved to be replicable. In 6 months, 3 new cooperatives were operating. Jessica, you've created a movement, said Edward. We created it. This only works because it's teamwork. The Desert Bloom Cooperative Network became a national reference in sustainable agribusiness. Jessica was invited to join government councils on rural development. Miss Jessica, the government wants to support the expansion of your model, the official representative informed her. Support how? Facilitated credit for new producers, technical assistance, export support. Jessica accepted the support but maintained the cooperative's independence. We don't want to depend on the government. We want a partnership, not dependence. Gradually, Jessica was building a business empire based on cooperation and quality. 5 years after being abandoned in the desert, she controlled a cooperative network that employed 1,000 families. Forbes magazine included Jessica in its list of the most influential young entrepreneurs in the United States. Jessica, you've become a celebrity, joked Mrs. Patricia. Not a celebrity, just someone who didn't give up. In an interview for national television, Jessica told her full story for the first time. How do you define your journey? Transformation. I was abandoned as one person and found myself as another. And Brandon, do you keep in touch? He works as a representative for one of our cooperatives in Texas. How so? After the wedding, I thought about what he said, about giving a second chance. I decided to take a risk. And did it work? Surprisingly, yes. He's our best representative in the region. Did you become friends again? We are co-workers. We respect each other. That's enough. In fact, the relationship with Brandon had evolved in an unexpected way. He had proven to be a competent and discreet salesman. Jessica, can I talk to you? Brandon sought her out after a meeting. Of course. I want to thank you for the opportunity. It changed my life. Brandon, you changed your own life. I only offered the chance. I know we'll never go back to what we were, nor should we. We're different people now. But I want you to know I admire who you've become. Brandon, you've become a better person too. That's what matters. The conversation marked the definitive closing of the abandonment cycle. Jessica had completely forgiven and moved on. Her marriage to Edward was solid. He fully supported her projects. Jessica, I have some news, Edward said one morning. What news? We're expecting a baby. Jessica hugged her husband, emotional. She would be a mother while maintaining all her projects. How are we going to manage the baby and the cooperative? We'll figure it out. You'll be a businesswoman, Mum. During her pregnancy, Jessica continued working normally. She traveled to the cooperatives, attended meetings, supervised production. Jessica, you need to rest, Mrs. Patricia would say. I'm fine. The work does me good. At 8 months pregnant, Jessica inaugurated 2 more cooperatives, one in New Mexico, another in Nevada. The Desert Bloom network now covered the entire Brazilian Northeast. The delivery was smooth. A healthy girl was born and given the name Hope. Why Hope? Asked Edward. Because it was hope that sustained me when I needed it most. Jessica took 3 months of maternity leave, but continued overseeing the business from home. Mommy is going to work a little bit, she would say to Hope. When she actively returned to work, she brought changes to the management. She wanted more time for family. Let's professionalize the management even more. I can't be indispensable. She hired experienced managers for each cooperative. Jessica took on a strategic, less operational role. The change worked well. The cooperatives maintained their performance with Jessica less present in the day-to-day. You've created something bigger than yourself, said Edward. That's what I wanted, something that would work independently of me. At 30, Jessica was recognized as one of the country's most successful entrepreneurs. She received an invitation to lecture at international universities about cooperativism and sustainable development. Jessica, Harvard wants you as a visiting professor, Edward informed her. Harvard, in the United States? Yes, for 1 semester. Very good salary. Jessica hesitated. It would be the first time leaving the United States since she had been abandoned. And hope? We'll all go. I can work from there temporarily. The experience at Harvard was transformative. Jessica met researchers studying models similar to hers. Ms. Jessica, your model is revolutionary, said Professor John Williams. Revolutionary how? You combine traditional knowledge with modern business practices. It's rare. Jessica realized she had created something unique, even on a global scale. Back in the United States, she implemented changes based on what she learned at Harvard. She created an exchange program between cooperatives in different countries. Americans traveled to Mexico. Mexicans came to the United States. Jessica, you are internationalizing cooperativism, said George Patterson. The exchange of experiences enriched everyone involved. The techniques were constantly refined. Jessica also created an investment fund to support new rural entrepreneurs. I want to give others the chance I had, she explained. The fund financed 50 projects in 2 years. Most were successful, multiplying the social impact. One of the beneficiaries was Joanna Williams, a young woman who had been abandoned by her husband with 3 children. Jessica, you saved my life, said Joanna. You saved your own life, I just offered the tools. Seeing other people overcome abandonment and difficulties moved Jessica deeply. Edward, I think I've found my life's purpose. What is it? To help abandoned people rebuild their lives. Jessica created an institute specializing in support for women in situations of abandonment. The institute offered professional training, psychological support, and microcredit for new businesses. Jessica, you are changing the lives of thousands of people, said the institute's psychologist. At 35, Jessica controlled a business empire that generated income for 10,000 families. Hope was now 5 years old and often accompanied her mother to the cooperatives. Mommy, when I grow up, I want to help people like you, the girl said. You can help in whatever way you want, my daughter. Jessica would never force her daughter to follow in her footsteps, but she was proud of the child's generosity. One morning, Jessica received an unexpected call. Jessica, it's Brandon. Hi, Brandon, how are you? Good. I want to share some news. What news? I'm getting married. Jessica was genuinely happy. That's wonderful, Brandon. With whom? Anna, a teacher I met in Texas. She helped me become a better person. Congratulations. You deserve to be happy. Jessica, can I ask you something? Go ahead. I would like you to come to the wedding. It would mean a lot to me. Jessica hesitated for a moment. Brandon, it would be strange. Jessica, you are part of my transformation story. Without you, I would never have become who I am today. Jessica talked to Edward about the invitation. Do you want to go? Asked her husband. I think so. It would be like closing the cycle for good. Then let's go. It will be good for everyone. Brandon's wedding was simple, in a small church in Texas. Jessica and Edward went with Hope. The little girl was curious about who Brandon was. Mommy, who is that man? Someone who was part of my life a long time ago, but now he's just a friend. During the ceremony, Jessica reflected on how life had taken unexpected turns. The man who had abandoned her now worked for her and was marrying the woman who had transformed him. Jessica, thank you for coming, said Brandon after the ceremony. Thank you for inviting me. Jessica, can I say something? Of course. Abandoning you was the worst and the best thing I've ever done. How so? Worst because it was cruel and cowardly. Best because it allowed you to become who you really were. Brandon, we are who we choose to be, regardless of what others do to us. You chose to be extraordinary. I chose not to give up. The final conversation between Jessica and Brandon was the period at the end of the story of abandonment and overcoming. On the flight back to Arizona, Jessica looked out the airplane window and saw the desert stretching to the horizon. Edward, remember when they asked me how I defined my journey? I remember. You said transformation. I changed my mind. How would you define it now? Discovery. I didn't transform. I discovered myself. Edward held her hand. And what did you discover? That the strength was always inside me. I just needed the right circumstances for it to appear. And Brandon was the circumstance? Brandon was the trigger, but the strength was mine. Hope slept peacefully on Jessica's lap. What kind of life do you want to give our daughter? Asked Edward. A life where she never needs to be abandoned to discover her strength. And if she is abandoned anyway, then she will know that abandonment is not the end. It's a beginning. Jessica looked out the window once more. The desert was green due to recent rains. The agave plants shone under the sun. Somewhere in that vastness, two abandoned creatures had found each other and built an empire based on cooperation and dignity. Edward, do you know what I'm most proud of in this whole story? What? It's not having become a successful businesswoman. Then what is it? It's having proven that people can change, grow, overcome themselves. Are you talking about Brandon? I'm talking about all of us, Mr. Thomas, who learned to trust new ideas, David and Michael, who became competent managers, Brandon, who learned humility, me, who discovered a strength I didn't know I had. And me? Joked Edward. You learned that you can marry a strong woman without losing your own identity. Edward laughed. Jessica, you still surprise me every day, and I intend to keep surprising you. The plane began its descent into Phoenix. In a few hours, Jessica would be back in her desert, her cooperatives, her people. Mommy, are we there yet? Hope woke up. Almost, my dear, almost home. Will I see the dogs? Yes, you will. Thor and Honey are waiting for you. Thor and Honey were the names Hope had given to the dogs that found Jessica in the desert. They were now 10 years old, slower, but still loyal companions. Mommy, tell me again how the dogs saved you. Jessica told the story one more time. She never tired of recalling that crucial moment. What if the dogs hadn't shown up? Then maybe Mum would have been lost for longer, but someone would have shown up to help. How do you know? Because someone always shows up when you need it most. Sometimes it's a dog, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's an opportunity. And Dad, did he show up when you needed him? Jessica looked at Edward and smiled. Dad showed up when I was ready to meet someone special. What's the difference? When you're desperate, you accept anyone. When you're strong, you choose the right person. The conversation with Hope made Jessica reflect on how she would explain her story to her daughter when she was older. It would be important for Hope to understand that strength comes from within, not from external circumstances. The plane landed smoothly in Phoenix. Jessica was returning home as she always did, eager to reunite with her people and her projects. Jessica, what do you want to do when we arrive? Asked Edward. First, visit Thor and Honey. Then stop by the cooperative. I want to see how this week's harvest went. And tomorrow we start planning the cooperatives in Delaware. Edward shook his head, smiling. You never stop. Stop for what? There's so much good to do. In the car, on the way to the farm, Jessica looked out the window at the crops that now stretched for miles. Hundreds of families depended on those plants to support their children. Edward, sometimes I can't believe all this started with 2 hungry dogs. It started with your courage not to give up. Everyone has courage. Not everyone gets the opportunity to discover it. That's why you created the Institute. Exactly. To give an opportunity to those who weren't lucky enough to be abandoned near a family like Mr. Thomas's. Jessica laughed at her own statement. What a strange thing to say, lucky to be abandoned. But it was luck, wasn't it? It was the greatest luck of my life. When they arrived at the farm, Thor and Honey ran to greet Hope. Despite their age, they still had energy to play with the girl. Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Patricia waited on the porch, smiling. How was the trip? Asked Mrs. Patricia. Great. I brought back lots of new ideas. Jessica, you don't even rest when you're traveling, joked Mr. Thomas. Yes, I do rest. I rest by thinking about how to make things better. During dinner, Jessica told them about the experience at Harvard and the plans for Delaware. Jessica, Sometimes I wonder where you keep all that energy, said Mrs. Patricia. I keep it here, Jessica pointed to her heart, in the certainty that every family that prospers is a victory against abandonment. How so? Every family that can support itself with dignity is a family that won't abandon its members when things get tough. Jessica's philosophy was simple. Prosperity generates stability. Stability generates emotional security. That's why I work so hard. It's not for the money. It's so that no child has to go through what I went through. Hope listened to everything attentively, even without fully understanding. Mum, were you sad when you were abandoned? I was very sad, my daughter. But are you happy now? Now I am very happy. So being abandoned was good. Jessica thought carefully about her answer. Being abandoned was bad. But I turned a bad thing into a good thing. That's different. How? I used my sadness to understand other people's sadness. And then I started to help. And now nobody gets sad anymore. Some people still get sad, but we try to help them become happy again. The conversation with Hope reinforced for Jessica the importance of educating the next generation about resilience and solidarity. The next morning, Jessica visited the original plantation where it had all begun. The land where Brandon had abandoned her now belonged to the most productive cooperative in the region. Edward, there's irony in that, isn't there? What irony? The place where I was abandoned became the most prosperous place in the region. Perhaps it's not irony, perhaps it's justice. Jessica walked to the exact spot where she had been left. Now the farm's best agave plants grew there. Thor and Honey accompanied her, as if they remembered that distant day. Thank you, said Jessica, petting the dogs. They wagged their tails, content. Edward, want to know something? What? If Brandon looked for me today to ask for forgiveness, I would say the same thing. What? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for abandoning me in the right place at the right time, near the right people. Edward bent down and picked up a handful of soil. This land tells quite a story. It does. The story of how abandonment can be the start of something magnificent. Jessica looked around. Plantations stretched to the horizon. Workers carried baskets full of agave. Trucks arrived to pick up the harvest. All of that had been born from a moment of absolute despair. Jessica, what do you want them to write about you when you die? Asked Edward. That she turned abandonment into abundance, and that she taught others to do the same. Just that? Just that is already a lot. Jessica picked up Hope and pointed to the plantations. Hope, one day all this will be yours. Mine? Yours to care for, to make grow even more. And if I don't want to, then you choose something else, but always remembering that prosperity is meant to be shared. How so? When we have a lot, we help those who have little. Why, Kai? Because that way everyone is happy. The simplicity of the answer charmed Edward. Jessica, you can explain complex philosophies in a way a child understands. Simple truths don't need complicated explanations. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. That afternoon, Jessica received an unexpected visit. It was Anna, Brandon's wife. Jessica, can I talk to you? Of course, Anna. Welcome. I want to thank you. Thank me for what? For giving Brandon an opportunity. He told me the whole story. Anna, Brandon earned the opportunity with his own work. I know he did, but you could have said no. Anyone in your place would have said no. Jessica served coffee for Anna. Anna, can I ask you a question? Of course. How did you manage to change Brandon? I didn't change him. He changed himself. But how? Brandon arrived in Texas completely broken, without self-esteem, without prospects. I just showed him he could be different. How? By believing in him when he didn't believe in himself. Jessica was impressed with Anna's wisdom. Anna, you and I have a lot in common. How so? We both took lost men and helped them find themselves. The difference is you got Brandon after he had already learned his lesson. True. You got the harder job." The two women laughed. "Jessica, Brandon asked me to ask you something." "What?" "If you would accept him as Hope's godfather." Jessica was surprised. "Godfather?" "He said it would be an honor to help in the education of the daughter of the woman who changed his life." Jessica needed a few days to think about the proposal. "Edward, what do you think?" "I think it would be a beautiful example of forgiveness and overcoming." "You wouldn't be bothered?" "Jessica, Brandon is part of your story. Hope should know that story completely." Jessica decided to accept. "Anna, tell Brandon we accept. He will be very happy, but on one condition." "What?" "I want him to tell Hope when she is older exactly what happened." "The whole story?" "The whole story, including the part about abandonment." "Why?" "So she understands that people can change, and that forgiveness is possible." The conversation with Anna marked another moment of maturity in Jessica's life. A few weeks later, Brandon and Anna came to Hope's baptism as godparents. "Jessica, thank you for this chance," said Brandon. "Brandon, promise me something." "I promise anything." "Promise that you'll be an example of transformation for Hope." "I promise." "And that you'll tell her how people can change when they truly want to." "You can count on it." The baptism was held in the farm's chapel, built with funds from the cooperative. The entire community participated. It was a celebration of faith and unity. During the ceremony, Jessica reflected on the cycles of life. The girl being baptized was born from the union of two people who found each other after one of them overcame abandonment, and she would be godmothered by the man who had caused that abandonment, now transformed. "Father, this is truly a special ceremony," said Jessica. "Why?" "Because it represents forgiveness, transformation, and hope, as all religious ceremonies should be." After the baptism, there was a big celebration at the farm. Local musicians played, they danced country dance, ate typical dishes. Hope slept in Jessica's arms as the party continued. "Edward, look," Jessica pointed. Brandon was talking animatedly with Mr. Thomas about planting techniques. Who would have thought that one day they'd be talking as friends? "Time heals many wounds," observed Edward, "and work does too." Brandon proved he changed through his work. "Jessica, do you believe people really change?" "I do. Because I changed." "You changed. Brandon changed." "And Hope? What do you want her to become?" "Whatever she wants, but always remembering that inner strength is more important than outer circumstances." The party continued into the late hours. It was a celebration of life, family, community. At the end of the night, when everyone had left, Jessica walked alone to the plantation. Thor and Honey followed her, as they always did. "Boys, thank you for finding me that day." The dogs lay down beside her, content. Jessica looked at the stars. The desert sky was immense and bright. If someone had told me 10 years ago that I would be here today. She didn't finish the sentence. It was hard to believe her own journey. Edward appeared with Hope sleeping in his arms. "Looking for you." "I was talking to the boys." "About what?" "About gratitude." "Gratitude to whom?" "To everyone. To you, to Hope, to Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Patricia, to the producers in the cooperative, and to Brandon." Jessica thought for a moment. "To Brandon, too. He gave me the greatest gift in life without knowing it." "What gift?" "The need to discover who I really was." Edward put his arm around Jessica. "And who are you really?" "Someone who doesn't give up, someone who turns difficulty into opportunity." "And what else?" "Someone who understood that abandonment is not an end, it's a beginning." They walked back to the house in silence. Hope slept peacefully in her father's arms. At the entrance to the house, Jessica stopped and looked back one more time. "Edward, I love this life. I love you loving this life. Promise me something." "I promise." "If I ever forget where I came from, remind me." "Why would I do that?" "So I never forget that luck is finding strength within yourself." Edward kissed Jessica on the forehead. "I think you'll never forget that." "I hope not." They went inside. Hope was placed in her crib. Thor and Honey settled on the porch. Another day had ended at the farm, born from abandonment. Jessica got ready for bed, thinking about plans for the next day. There were always new challenges, new opportunities, new people to help. "Edward, are you happy?" "Completely happy." "Even with all this rush of the cooperative?" "Especially because of the rush, you make a difference in people's lives." "We do. I alone wouldn't accomplish anything." Jessica fell asleep, thinking that life had given her hard but valuable lessons. Abandonment had taught her independence. Loneliness had taught her to value companionship. Despair had taught her hope. Deep down, Brandon had done her the biggest favor of her life. The next morning, Jessica woke up to Hope calling, "Mummy, can I go see the dogs?" "Yes, my dear." Hope ran to the porch. Thor and Honey were waiting for her for another day of play. Jessica made coffee and began planning the cooperative meeting. "Edward, today we'll decide on the expansion to Nevada. How many families will benefit?" 300 families in the first phase. "Jessica, you never stop growing." "The business doesn't stop growing. I just manage the growth." "What's the limit?" "The limit is our ability to maintain quality." Jessica had learned that unchecked growth could destroy what was built so carefully. "I'd rather grow slow and well than fast and poorly." During breakfast, Hope asked an unexpected question. "Mommy, why did Godfather Brandon become different?" Jessica and Edward looked at each other. It was too early to explain such a complex story. "What do you mean different?" Aunt Anna said he was bad before, and now he's good. "Hope, people sometimes do wrong things, but they can learn and do right things." "How?" "By working, studying, trying to be better every day." "And why did he do wrong things?" "Because he was confused, sad, lost. And now?" "Now he has found his way." Hope was satisfied with the explanation. "Mommy, can I get confused too?" "Yes, you can. Everyone gets confused sometimes." "And will you help me?" "Always, my dear, always." The conversation with Hope reminded Jessica of the importance of preparing her daughter for life's challenges. "Edward, we need to teach Hope about resilience." "How?" "By telling our story, showing that problems have solutions when we don't give up." She's still very young. It's never too early to learn about inner strength. Jessica decided to create a special tradition. Every Sunday she would tell Hope a story about overcoming. They will be real stories of people who overcame difficulties, including our story, especially our story. On the first Sunday of the tradition, Jessica told a story about a woman who was abandoned in the desert and found 2 dogs. "And then, my dear?" "And then did they help each other?" "They helped each other a lot. The dogs gave the woman companionship. The woman gave the dogs food and affection. And then the woman met good people who taught her how to work. And did she like the work? She liked it so much she became the best worker in the region. And the dogs? The dogs stayed with her forever as faithful friends." Hope clapped at the end of the story. "Tell another one, Mommy." Jessica told several stories of overcoming. Hope absorbed each lesson. "Mommy, can all people overcome problems?" "All who don't give up can." "And how do we not give up?" "By remembering that every problem has a solution. It might take time to appear, but it has one." The Sunday stories became a special moment between mother and daughter. Edward also participated, telling stories of perseverance he knew. "Jessica, Hope is learning valuable lessons." "I hope so. I want her to face life prepared." "Prepared how?" "Knowing she has inner strength. Knowing she can count on us. Knowing that problems pass." The following years were of steady growth for the cooperative. The Desert Bloom brand became synonymous with international quality. Jessica was invited to business boards, universities, international organizations. "Jessica, you've become a world reference," said George Patterson during one of his visits. "We've become a reference. This is collective work. But the vision was yours. The vision may have been mine. The execution was everyone's." Jessica never forgot that individual success doesn't exist. It always depends on team, family, community. At 40, Jessica was recognized as one of the most influential women in U.S. agribusiness. Hope was 15 and was beginning to show interest in the family business. "Mom, can I go with you to the cooperative meeting?" "You can, but you have to pay attention and ask smart questions." "What kind of questions?" "Questions about how to improve the producers' lives." Hope accompanied Jessica to several meetings. She quickly absorbed the business matters. "Mom, why don't you automate the production more?" "Why? It would be more efficient." "Hope, efficiency isn't just speed. It's also about creating jobs for the families in the region." "I see. It's social efficiency." Jessica was impressed by her daughter's maturity. "Hope, you have a talent for business. I learned by watching you." "What else have you observed?" "That good businesses are those that help people live better, and bad businesses are those that only think about profit." Jessica hugged her daughter, proud. "You've understood the essence of what we do." Hope began to frequent the cooperative regularly. She knew all the producers, understood every stage of production. "Jessica, your daughter has a bright future," said Mr. Thomas, now 75. "She'll have the future she chooses. And if she chooses to follow in your footsteps, then she'll do better than I did." "How can you be sure?" "Because she'll start from where I left off, with all the experience it took me years to acquire." Mr. Thomas smiled. "Jessica, you are wise." "I learned from you, Mr. Thomas." "What did you learn from me?" "That wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from facing difficulties without giving up." At 75, Mr. Thomas still actively participated in the cooperative. His experience was consulted on all important decisions. "Mr. Thomas, do you regret accepting Jessica that day?" "Pedro, that's the dumbest question you've ever asked." "Why?" "Accepting Jessica was the best decision of my life. She multiplied our prosperity 1,000-fold. But in the beginning, you were suspicious." "I was, yes. An experienced man is suspicious of novelty, but a wise man recognizes quality when he sees it." "And how did you recognize Jessica's quality?" "By the work. Jessica worked harder than any man in the region." "And besides the work?" "By the heart. She genuinely cared about everyone's well-being." Mrs. Patricia, now 70, also joined the conversation. "Patricia, did you see something special in Jessica from the first day?" "I did. I saw a woman determined not to be a victim of circumstances." "How?" "Jessica cried for one night only. The next day she was ready to work. That showed her character." "And what else?" "The way she treated the dogs. A person who takes good care of an abandoned animal takes good care of people." The reflections of Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Patricia reinforced for Jessica the importance of her first supporters. "Without you, I wouldn't have achieved anything." "Jessica, you would have," said Mrs. Patricia. "How can you be sure?" "Because you had the determination. We just offered the opportunity." "Opportunity at the right moment makes all the difference." "True. That's why we always help young people who arrive here lost." The tradition of welcoming people in difficulty continued on the farm. Several people had been helped over the years. "Jessica, you've created a culture of solidarity," observed Edward. "I didn't create it, it already existed, I just systematized it." "How so?" "Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Patricia always helped those in need. I turned this into a formal program. The institute created by Jessica had already helped over 1,000 people in situations of abandonment or extreme hardship." "Jessica, what was the most remarkable case?" asked Hope. "Carla Anderson." "Who is Carla Anderson?" "A 40-year-old woman abandoned by her husband with 4 young children." "And what happened?" "She arrived here desperate. She had no profession, no money, no self-esteem. And how did she overcome it?" "She learned to make artisanal sweets. Today she has a factory that employs 20 people." "Where is the factory?" "Right nearby. Carla never wanted to leave here." Hope was fascinated by the stories of overcoming. "Mom, why do some people manage to overcome difficulties and others don't?" "Hope, that is a very profound question. And what is the answer?" "There is no simple answer, but I believe it has to do with 3 things." "What are they?" First, believing the situation can improve. Second, being willing to work hard. Third, accepting help when it appears. And those who don't manage. Usually, they are people who give up too early, or who don't believe in themselves. How do we help those people? By offering opportunity, showing examples of those who succeeded, and having patience. The conversations with Hope helped Jessica reflect on her own journey. Edward, sometimes I think about what my life would be like if Brandon hadn't abandoned me. And what would it be like? I'd probably be the wife of a bankrupt businessman living in a big city without discovering my talents. Do you regret anything? I regret taking so long to forgive Brandon completely. Why? Because resentment hinders growth. The sooner we forgive, the faster we evolve. And now, have you forgiven completely? Now I'm grateful, which is the highest level of forgiveness. Edward hugged Jessica. You've become a very wise person. I haven't become anything. I just learned from experiences. And which experience taught you the most? Abandonment, paradoxically. Why? Because it forced me to discover internal resources I didn't know I had. Jessica looked out the window. Hope was playing with Thor and Honey in the garden. The dogs were now 15 years old. They were old, but still playful. Edward, Thor and Honey won't last much longer. Hope will be very sad. She will, but she will also learn about life cycles. Will you tell her the dog's full story? I will, when she turns 18. Why 18? Because then she'll be mature enough to understand that saviors can appear in the most unexpected forms. Life continued at its own pace on the farm, production growing, family prospering, community developing. Jessica, now 45, began to think about succession. Edward, I need to prepare Hope to take on responsibilities. Does she want to take them on? I don't know yet, but I need to give her the conditions to choose. How? Teach her everything I know. If she wants to continue, she'll have the knowledge. If she doesn't, she'll have options. Hope, at 20, was studying business administration with a focus on agribusiness. Mum, can I suggest some changes to the cooperative? Of course. What changes? Digital marketing, online sales, customer relationship management through social media. Jessica was impressed with her daughter's ideas. Hope, these are very good ideas. The cooperative needs to modernize without losing its artisanal essence. And how to do that? Tell our story through social media, show the production process, introduce the producers, explain our values. Hope's suggestions were truly valuable. Hope, do you want to implement these changes? I do. It can be my graduation project. Jessica gave Hope free rein to modernize the cooperative's communication. The result was impressive. In 6 months, online sales accounted for 30% of revenue. Mom, people love knowing the story behind the products. What kind of story? Our story. The story of overcoming, cooperation, artisanal quality. And how do you tell these stories? With videos, photos, testimonials from the producers, short documentaries. Hope's strategy won customers all over the world. Jessica, your daughter is a marketing genius, said George Patterson. She understood that artisanal products sell dreams, not just drinks. What dreams? The dream of authenticity, of quality, of a true story. The success of the digital strategy attracted attention from large companies interested in buying the brand. Jessica, we've received an offer of $50 million, the lawyer informed. $50 million? Yes, for the entire brand and the formulas. Jessica gathered the cooperative to discuss the offer. Folks, it's a lot of money, said John Anderson. It is. Each family would receive $500,000. And we lose control over our brand? Asked Michael. We do. The buying company would do whatever it wanted. Including changing the quality? Asked David. Including. The cooperative was divided. The money was tempting, but it meant the end of the original project. Jessica, you decide, said Mr. Thomas. No. We decide together. Then let's vote, suggested Mrs. Patricia. The vote was close. By a 1-vote difference, they decided not to sell. I'd rather earn less and keep our values, said the majority. Jessica was proud of the decision. You chose principles over quick money. We learned from you, said David. 2 years later, the brand was worth $100 million, but no one regretted not selling. Jessica, we made the right choice, said Hope. We did. Some things are priceless. Like what? Like autonomy, dignity, purpose. Hope graduated with highest distinction. Her monograph on sustainable cooperativism was published in an international journal. Mom, can I take over the commercial management of the cooperative? You can, but on one condition. What? You have to spend a year working on the plantation. Why? To understand where our product comes from, to get to know each producer personally. Hope gladly accepted the condition. For a year she worked from sunup to sundown on the plantation. She cut agave, participated in the harvest, learned about soil and climate. Mom, now I understand why you always talk about the importance of groundwork. Why? Because the soul of the business is in the plantation. And what is the soul of the business? It's the people. Each plant represents the livelihood of a family. Jessica hugged her daughter, moved. Now you are ready to lead. Hope took over commercial management at 23. Under her management, international sales tripled. Jessica, your daughter has surpassed you, said Edward. She hasn't surpassed. She has continued and improved. Aren't you jealous? I'm proud. That's what we raise children for. Jessica began gradually reducing her operational involvement. She wanted to dedicate more time to the Institute for supporting the abandoned. Edward, I want to expand the Institute to the entire Southwest. How many people do you want to help? All who need it. Jessica, you can't save everyone. I can't save, but I can offer opportunity. The Second Chance Institute became a national reference in social reintegration. Politicians, business people, and academics regularly visited to understand the model. Jessica, what is the secret to the Institute's success? Asked a television reporter. There's no secret. It's serious, persistent work and genuine interest in helping. But there must be some special methodology. The methodology is simple. Believe in people's capacity for transformation. And how do you do that? Offering professional training, emotional support, and real work opportunities. What sets you apart from other social programs? We don't give handouts. We give the opportunity to earn dignity through work. The interview had a national impact. The Institute received dozens of funding offers. Jessica, we can expand much faster now, said the Institute's coordinator. We will expand, but while maintaining quality. I'd rather help fewer people well than many people poorly. The Institute maintained strict quality standards. Each new unit was carefully planned and monitored. In 10 years, the Institute had helped 10,000 people rebuild their lives. Jessica, you've created a national movement, said the Secretary of Social Development. I didn't create anything. I just showed it's possible. Possible what? To transform abandonment into opportunity. How do you define your legacy? I hope my legacy is having proven that no one needs to accept defeat as final. Jessica, at 50, was recognized nationally and internationally as a reference in social entrepreneurship. She received dozens of awards, honorary titles, invitations to international boards. Edward, sometimes I still can't believe all this. Believe what exactly? How one bad thing turned into so many good things. It wasn't the bad thing that transformed. It was you who transformed it. I didn't do it alone. Of course not. But you had the vision and the persistence. Jessica looked at the photos on the wall. Hope graduating, the cooperative's first harvest, the Institute's inauguration, Brandon and Anna's wedding. Edward, our life has been good. Very good. And do you know why? Why? Because we built things that will last beyond us. Like what? The cooperative will continue. The Institute will continue. The families that prospered will continue to prosper. And Hope? Hope will do even better than we did. Hope, now 25, was engaged to Mitchell, an agronomist who worked at the cooperative. Mum, we want to get married here at the ranch. Of course, my daughter. this has always been your home. Thank you for creating such a special place to grow up. Hope, you grew up special by your own choice. I learned by watching you. What did you observe? That strength comes from within. That work dignifies. That helping others enriches us. Jessica hugged her daughter with tears in her eyes. Hope, you understood everything. Hope's wedding was a landmark event in the region. The whole community participated. Brandon and Anna came from rural Texas, especially for the ceremony. Jessica, thank you for including me in Hope's extended family, said Brandon. Brandon, you earned that place. How? With work, dedication, and genuine transformation. Jessica, can I make a confession? Go ahead. Sometimes I feel that abandoning you was the worst and the best thing that ever happened to all of us. How so? Worst, because it was cruel and unnecessary. Best, because it allowed you to discover your greatness. Brandon, everyone has greatness. It just needs the right circumstances to appear. Do you think I had greatness? I'm sure of it. You proved it with your transformation. The final conversation between Jessica and Brandon definitively closed the cycle of hurt and opened the door to complete forgiveness. During the wedding reception, Mr. Thomas, now 80 years old, asked to speak. Folks, I want to tell a story. Everyone fell silent. Over 20 years ago, a lost young woman appeared at our door. I was suspicious of her. Laughter from the crowd. Patricia made me give her a chance. Thank goodness she made me. Applause. This young woman brought prosperity to our entire region, but more important than prosperity, she brought dignity. How so, Mr. Thomas? Someone shouted. It brought dignity because it taught us that well-done work is worth more than political favors, that unity is worth more than competition, that helping is worth more than accumulating. The audience applauded, moved. Jessica, thank you for coming into our lives. Jessica stood up to respond. Mr. Thomas, Mrs. Patricia, thank you for taking me in when I needed it most. We did what any decent person would do. No, you did more. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Jessica looked at the entire audience. I want to say something to all of you. Absolute silence. This party isn't just to celebrate Hope's wedding, it's to celebrate what we built together. What did we build? Someone asked. A community where no one needs to be abandoned. A community where everyone can start over. A community where work and solidarity go hand in hand. The audience stood up, applauding. And I want to make an announcement, Jessica continued. What announcement? I'm creating a $1 million fund to finance young entrepreneurs from the region. The news caused a general stir. How will it work? They asked. Young people with innovative ideas can apply for funding. If it succeeds, they pay it back by returning a portion of the profits. If it fails, we consider it an investment in education. The idea was revolutionary for the region. Jessica, where is this money coming from? Asked Hope. From the sale of my collection of awards and artworks I've received over the years. Mom, those awards are your history. Hope, my history is the people I've helped. The awards are just symbols. Jessica's decision moved everyone. Jessica, you are an example for future generations, said the town mayor. I don't want to be an example. I want to be an inspiration so others discover their own strengths. The party continued until dawn. It was a celebration of love, family, community, and hope for the future. The next day, Jessica woke up early as she always did. Hope and Mitchell had left for their honeymoon. The ranch was quiet. Jessica walked to the original field accompanied by Thor and Honey, now very old. Boys, you saw it all, didn't you? The dogs wagged their tails slowly. You saw a lost woman become a businesswoman. You saw a desert turn into an oasis of prosperity. Jessica sat in the same spot where she had been abandoned 25 years earlier. If Brandon hadn't abandoned me here. She didn't finish the sentence. It was impossible to imagine a different life. Edward appeared with coffee and warm bread. Thinking about life? Thinking about how surprising life is. How so? Who would have thought the worst moment of my life would be the beginning of the best? You turned the worst moment into the best moment. I didn't do it alone, Edward. I know you didn't, but you were the catalyst. Jessica drank her coffee watching the sun rise over the fields. Edward, I'm thinking about writing a book. About what? About how to turn abandonment into opportunity. Would it be an autobiography? It would be a practical guide for people in similar situations. What kind of guidance would you give? First thing, abandonment isn't the end, it's the beginning. Second thing, strength comes from within, not from outside. Third thing, dignified work always yields results. And the fourth thing? Fourth thing, accept help when it appears, but never depend completely on others. And the fifth? Fifth, as soon as you can stand up, extend your hand to those who are still down. Edward smiled. Jessica, you have the book ready in your head. I have a whole lifetime of experiences to share. The book, From Abandonment to Abundance, was written over the course of a year. Jessica told her complete story for the first time, including details she had never revealed. Edward, it was hard to relive some memories. What memories? The fear I felt when Brandon left me, the humiliation, the feeling of being worthless. And why did you include these parts? Because people who are going through this need to know that these feelings are normal and that they pass. The book became a national bestseller. Jessica donated all the royalties to the Second Chance Institute. Why didn't you keep the money? Journalists asked. Because I didn't write to make money, I wrote to help people. And how can the book help? By showing that abandonment is not a final verdict on a person's worth. What message do you want to leave for those going through abandonment now? I want to say, you are stronger than you think. Your story isn't over. It just changed chapters. End of story. So, what did you think of Jessica's journey? Tell us in the comments which moment moved you the most. And if you also believe that sometimes the greatest difficulties lead us to the best destinations. If you've made it this far, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one.